On what? Oh yeah, your image is frozen on the stream.
Same for yours. It's saying it's loading or something. Let me check my internet.
I was saying the broadcast is live now.
Oh no, yeah, you're good. I see you.
You're good.
Perfect. What's going on, everybody? Rakim Sabri here. Here with Coach James. We are on our last of the series for Financial Wellness Month. Today we're going to be talking about our project. So no commercials. This entire session is a commercial. But we're going to also do a quick recap of who we are, why we're in this space, because I know many people may have not watched the previous 3 live streams. We are broadcasting on Instagram Live, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube right now. And I don't sound excited, but I am excited to kind of wind this up and get this project out there. We've been working really hard behind the scenes. And before we get into that, let me give James an opportunity to introduce himself, and we'll get this show on the road.
For sure. Just want to thank everyone who has joined with us so far. My name is James Huntley. I go by Coach James. I am a civil engineer and a budget coach. I love working with people to get organized. And as a budget coach, I'm able to do that. I'm able to, talk to people and really see their day-to-day, maybe I wouldn't say issues, but some of the things that they're going through, and to help them get to a state of organization. And it's funny because with my experience as an engineer and as a budget coach, they intertwine in so many different ways. Each day, I'm literally planning and helping others get organized. So on my day job as a civil engineer, I help set up plans and carry them out to completion for, let's say, the next 5 years or so. And it's the same thing with working with people budgeting. We're setting up a plan so that 5 years down the road, you feel comfortable with your finances. So really excited to be doing this workbook and course with Rakim. And, we're right around the corner. So it's exciting.
Yes, and for everybody who doesn't know me, and everybody should know me, at least on the streaming Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, my name is Rakim Sabri. I cover financial trauma and financial empowerment for people who look like me. And my passion, my world right now is in and around financial therapy, financial psychology, and really working to address financial trauma. I have a podcast called Overcoming Financial Trauma. I have a newsletter that I send out almost every Friday at 9:30 a.m. called Overcoming Financial Trauma. And so James and I, as a quick recap, met at the FinCon conference last year, and he introduced himself to me as a budgeting coach, right? And I'm like, oh, I'm a financial coach. That's how I branded myself. And that's how I continue to brand myself. And I'm like, we have to figure out a way to collaborate. And at FinCon simultaneously is where I started to gain the vocabulary to understand what financial therapy was, who was the financial psychologist and the work that they've done, and how I can contribute to that work by highlighting the experience, particularly the experience of Black Americans in this country as it relates to interacting with their finances. And so that's where I kind of have settled in my niche. And so James and I circled the block, right? And we decided that the best way to collaborate was to take the best of his skill set and his passion, which was around the budgeting, the systems, teaching people how to establish those fundamental or foundational behaviors. And my area of specialization or expertise, if you will, in financial wellness and helping people to understand their feelings around money, their behaviors around money, that they may have experienced or will experience financial trauma, and what are the steps that they can do to navigate that trauma, overcome that trauma, and then implement a lot of the foundational behaviors that James talks about. So I think that we are a powerhouse combination, collaboration, call it what you will. I don't see anybody else talking about or putting this much energy into talking about the foundational behaviors surrounding budgeting and the systems and the disciplines and the strategies that you can use to execute on paying down debt, investing, increasing your income, decreasing your expenses, while also talking about the things that the feelings, right, that we have around money. And so over the last, how long has it been now, James? Maybe 2 months, about 2 months or so, we've been working behind the scenes to not only create a course that is, I won't say comprehensive, but as comprehensive as you're going to get, including these two topics, but also that's evolved into working on a workbook that we will be producing and selling standalone separate from the course and in addition to the course for individuals to complete at their leisure. And today is all about the work that we've been doing on this project. So I'm going to hand it back over to you, James, because I know that we want to talk about, or rather do a recap on the budgeting systems, right? And maybe talk about why budgeting is important. And then I will come back in and talk about my favorite topic, the feelings and the behaviors around money. And then we'll wrap it up by just kind of answering questions, opening it up rather for you to ask questions for us to answer about the workbook. And certainly we will preempt some of those questions and just kind of talk about what our experience has been in the process. So James, you could take it away.
So before I get into, the budgeting systems and things like that, I just want to touch on a conversation that we first had on our first encounter at when me and you met, Rakim. And I was having a discussion with one of my friends. Her name is Rory. And we basically were talking about how long you're willing to wait to have your goals to basically come true. And so as we're talking about our finances and we're talking about, wanting to get organized with our money, want to understand some of these money terms like financial trauma, we basically came to the conclusion that it takes patience and it takes time to implement some of the strategies in order to get you to that point. And so in this workbook and in this course, me and Rakim are just trying to collaborate to put together information and tools to allow you to get to that place of financial organization. So some of the things that are important when it comes to financial organization is how you handle money and understanding yourself when it comes to money. And everyone learns different, and everyone makes different decisions based on their personal traits. So understanding budgeting styles is like the first thing that we talk about within our course and in the workbook. And it's just knowing, okay, am I a person who has to write things down to stay organized? Or am I a person who needs to see it on my phone, set a reminder in my phone? All right. So really understanding the way you operate when it comes to money is crucial and is the foundation to allowing yourself to get to that place of financial organization. If you're doing things that are really not in line with your character and your typical behaviors, it's going to be really hard to stick to something. I'll give an example. I know for me, I have determined that I am a night person. I'm not not an early morning person. I hate getting up at 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m. really to get anything done. So I know that I can get most of my efficient work done at night. And so when it comes to money and budgeting, you need to understand yourself and understand the way that you handle yourself in those situations. So going through your budgeting styles, and then that sets you up to actually get organized. So what my favorite thing about budgeting is the fact that you have to break it into bite-sized pieces. And what I mean by bite-sized pieces is just like really taking it step by step. If I know that I need to organize how much I'm spending, I need to be writing out each expense, right? Breaking it up point by point. And we kind of talked about this in our last, or maybe in our first or second live, but just if you have this big goal, you can't it's tough to just get from point A to point B without taking your first step. So you're running a mile, running 2 miles. You can't just all of a sudden stand there, and after you stand there, you're at mile 2, right? You got to take your first steps, 2 steps, 3 steps, whatever it may be, to get you to that end point. So understanding, breaking down your finances into a few different things. So those things are your expenses. You need to understand your income. You need to know your debt. And these are things that we talk about in our workbook. And the thing about the workbook that I really like, Rakim, is the fact that it kind of breaks it step by step, so you're not so overwhelmed. I think that can be a really big thing that takes place when you feel like you're all over the place and you feel like maybe your spending habits have gotten so out of control that you don't even know where to start. I think the workbook and the course really breaks things down into small pieces. Did we go off?
No, we're on.
Okay.
I removed myself by accident.
I was like, you disappeared there.
Yeah, no. Navigating this technology. What I really like about the course, or the evolution of the course from the way that we first started looking at it, and the workbook from the way that we first started looking at it, is that we both challenge each other quite a lot from our unique vantage points, right? So we talk about an audience of people who has consistent income through their 9 to 5 that may be considered high income earners. We talk about a demographic of people who have inconsistent income. So they may be an entrepreneur, freelancer. So they may get, income in large increments, or they may get smaller income on a more regular basis. And then we talk about people who kind of fall in the middle, right? Like they have the 9 to 5, but their expenses are, exceeding their income. And so the push and pull of our unique experiences kind of covers a large audience, which I think is important, because we don't want to create this product that only applies to, maybe 85% of people, 75% of people. And I also think that this product, or these products rather, are timely as we look at the economy, as we look at the job market, and we're seeing these massive layoffs. People are going to be, or if they aren't already, struggling with income, with their feelings and emotions, particularly if they're being faced with something like a layoff, or they work for a company that has just announced layoffs and they're kind of walking on eggshells to figure out, am I next? And so, touching on all of these real world issues in a timely fashion, I think is super valuable in that, people, this is real life. Like, this is not, oh, this is a nice to have. This is necessary content. But beyond that, I love that you mentioned the introduction that we had to each other at FinCon, and that conversation, because I remember it very well. Actually, I think I caught some of it on video, and just kind of think like how far we've come in this work together since then. And like you said, being very intentional about creating bite-sized pieces of content all in one place for people to work through. It's again super necessary. And I think that's the reason why we went workbook style instead of like this is an instructional, maybe textbook style piece of content, because the lesson is going to be in the course. Like, that's where the value is. We're going to be having the conversation. We're going to be using real world examples. We're going to be, you're going to hear it directly from our mouths. You're going to be able to rewind it and pause it and kind of reflect on that. But for the individuals that are not in a position to, or who don't immediately choose to prioritize purchasing the course and decide, well, I'll go look at the workbook first, there are going to be a lot of the same content, but in written format that you can kind of go through and piece through, like I said, at your leisure, which I think is important, because this world of personal finance, money, the feelings around money, the systems and processes around budgeting can be overwhelming. And I'll raise my hand too and say that even there are instances where it is overwhelming for me. And that's another thing rather that I've realized in the collaboration of this work, is that not only are we talking about this work from the perspective of being the quote unquote expert, but we're also talking about this work from the perspective of living and breathing it. So when I talk about financial trauma and how do you overcome financial trauma, or how do you untangle the feelings that you have around money, how do you address scarcity and survival in instances where you are safe, but it's not an ideal situation, or you have enough, but you're looking at social media that's telling you that you need more. I'm talking from the perspective of the quote unquote expert, but also from the perspective of the person who's living that experience. And so this content is not designed to talk at you or to make you feel guilt or make you feel shame about what you should have done and what you should be doing, and that, oh, you're 33 years old and you should have started budgeting 15 years ago, or you're 50 years old and your time is past for planning for retirement. The content in this course and this workbook is to help meet you where you are so that you can create a pathway to what success looks like in however you choose to define that. And so for some people, success looks like, I want to be a millionaire. To other people, success looks like, I want to eliminate debt. To other people, success looks like, I want to eliminate a chunk of my debt so that I can enjoy more of my paycheck. And once I get to that place, I'm good. Like, I don't mind having debt. I just mind not being able to spend money on my weekly haircut or going to get a pedicure or going out for dinner. And so being able to define a realistic goal for yourself with respect to time, with respect to the discipline that you're going to employ, with respect to the income and expenses that you have, is super important. And I think when we look at works, the traditionalist works of, and I'm not picking on anybody, but like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Dave Ramsey, and all of these guys, that it's like one extreme or another. It's not taking into account the people that are experiencing survival mode today. It's not taking into account the single parents who have to not only care for themselves but care for their children. It's not taking into account the people who got laid off, who maybe have had experiences with homelessness or are coming out of an experience with homelessness. And so this financial empathy that we're approaching this work from, this real world, we're in it, in the trenches with you, that we're approaching this work from, is definitely something different. I've never seen it anywhere in all the time that I've been doing what I've been doing, and I've been in this space for over a decade. I've never seen it, and just the collaboration of two minds in creating these products is phenomenal. I'm not just saying that because it's my product, but I'm saying that because we're working really hard to give quality. And one of the things that James has said many times behind the scenes, as I've been kind of pushing the issue of schedule and when do we want to have this done and when do we want to have this done by, is I'm not trying to rush this. Like, let's take our time, let's do it right. And so, I appreciate his wisdom in that approach to creating this very, I want to use the word comprehensive, but I don't want to falsely advertise because it's probably not going to cover everything. But it's going to be a lot, and it's going to be good stuff.
For sure. So I think one of the things that I want to just mention is like being, understanding your why. I think that's a huge thing that people that are wanting to join the course, that are interested in joining the course or getting the workbook, is to really, sit down and determine why it is that you want to reach whatever financial goals that you may have. And this is very, very crucial. Now, like some of the examples that you gave, Rakim, about being laid off, or a person having to now they have a newborn child that they have to take care of, or there's something drastic that has, now they have to focus on getting their finances in order. That can maybe be their why, but really understanding that why will help you to stay focused and will really drive you to take all the necessary steps to really reach your financial goals. So that is something that we have incorporated in the course and in the workbook, as your financial goals, kind of determining what that reason why you want to become, or reach your financial goals. So I just wanted to point that out. And as you're coming into the course, as you're being interested in the course, coming in with an open mind, I think is huge too. I know for me, like when I first graduated from college, and even now sometimes I'm like, I literally feel like I know everything. I have this persona of I know it, or I'll be able to figure it out on my own. And well, I think this is a really good mindset to have. Sometimes it bites me in the butt sometimes as well. And I think one of the times that I recognized that I needed to kind of open my mind just in general is when I went to FinCon. As a budget coach, my main thing is wanting to help those get organized with their finances. But there's so many things out there and so much new technology that is out there that I had no clue about. So going to that conference, having an open mind, it really allowed for me to know and see what is out there, what is better, how can I learn, How can I improve myself? And so, as we're talking about financial trauma, that was a term I had no clue about. I didn't even know it was a thing. Having empathy and all these different terms, and this is something that we talk through in the workbook and cover. I didn't know about these things, and so when you come in with the open mind and you're wanting to learn and understand some of these things that are not taught, first of all, in school, as well as you're probably your family members or whoever you're around, they may not be bringing it up. Most of the time, when I'm with my family, friends, whoever, I just want to have a good time, right? You just been working, you've been busy all day, and the little time that you have is just to relax, right? So by coming in, with an open mind, wanting to learn, wanting to take in information, it can really not only help educate you, but also to help challenge your thinking and to push you to grow. So that's my goal with this thing. I like Rakim was saying, as you come in from whatever stage you're at, if you feel like you're in a good position and you just want to grow, or you feel like you're just super unorganized or just don't know where to start, we want to take you from wherever that is and educate on some of these topics, some of these things that you may be unaware of. So.
It must be prime time somewhere because I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces pop into the live, and I want to take the opportunity to thank you and appreciate you all for tuning in. I see some activity coming in from Facebook as well, and also open it up as we're still discussing this product, right? Open it up for questioning. I know budgeting sounds super mundane, it sounds super basic, and so it's like, oh, what is it to budgeting? But there are a lot of people who don't know. There are a lot of people who don't have a system in place, or who have a preferred system but aren't aware of other systems. So I want to take the opportunity to give you guys the rather I want to give you guys the opportunity to ask questions around budgeting, around the course, the project that we're working on, around financial therapy. I want this session to be a little bit more interactive than we've had it in the past, because James and I have been doing all the talking, and that's fine. This is our content, right? We're organizing it, but as we're seeing engagement pick up, we also want to hear from you guys. Our first audience in the delivering of this product is going to be you, right? It's going to be the people that we have on social media, people that we have on our email lists. And so we'd like to see success with this, even if it's not you directly buying it, but you sharing it, you talking to other people about it. We want to create a resource that can be circulated in this community. So what questions do you guys have for either James or myself around financial therapy, around financial trauma, around budgeting, or around the course itself, course/workbook? Tell us about some of your learning styles. Are you more of a visual learner? So do you think that the workbook is going to be more beneficial to you? Are you more of a audio learner? Do you think that listening to us talk is going to be more beneficial? Are you more of kind of like both, like tactile? You're doing the work, so you have problems. I know one of my teaching styles in the workbook is certainly going to be multiple choice questions and fill in the blanks. So if you decide to purchase the workbook and you start to see those, particularly in the area of financial therapy, know that was all Rakim. How are you feeling about money today? Fill in the blank. But I think those are necessary to kind of help people not be told what they should be feeling, but to give them the area, the space to kind of figure out what it is that they are actually feeling. Let's see, we got a question for you, James. What are some budgeting apps that you recommend, if at all? And I'm gonna laugh about this on mute because we have had many conversations about this.
So I would definitely say one of my favorite budgeting apps is Mint. Um, one of the main reasons why I like it is because it's free for one, so you're not having to pay anything to be able to use it. But also with the app, there's a lot of cool things that you can do, like be able to connect your different checking accounts, your credit cards. It allows you to create different goals within the app, and so when you have and it allows you to set like budgeting limits for any category that you are having, or you're spending your money on. So this app is really good for getting organized and really seeing the big picture. And I think that's one of the things that the people that I work with they like to see is okay. I know the income that I have coming in, but maybe I don't know where I'm spending my money. So anytime that person swipes their card, those transactions are going into the app. So they can categorize it as whatever it is. Like let's just say, for example, if you have $100 spending limit for groceries. Well, when you swipe your card, you can categorize it as groceries. And once it reaches that $100 mark, you'll see that, okay, it literally turns red on $101. So that just means that, you have went over that budget for that particular month. And you can also, you know, set up things to where it'll not only do monthly budgeting, but it also can you can set limits for different expenses like getting your oil changed, and so that's like a every 3 month thing. So it's a lot that you can do within that app. It's free, and I do like that one. Another app I like, but it does cost, is Digit. Digit is an app where it basically they take you basically have a savings goal and you want to basically pull money out of your account to go towards that savings fund. And so it does it on a daily basis to where you don't even notice it. Like you can be working or doing whatever, and it pulls a certain amount of money out. And over a period of time, at the end of that period of time, you have the amount that you need saved, as long as you didn't, spend money, or as long as you have that money sitting in your account. So I like Mint and Digit specifically. Now there are a ton of other ones like Personal Capital and you need a budget, and I'm looking into those currently. With Personal Capital, there's some things where there were some features that I wasn't able to, like sometimes you couldn't set your budget limits, or there are certain things that I just feel like you couldn't get all the features that you needed in. So um, as an all around app, I like Mint.
I'll also add that
So sorry guys. I'll add that some banking apps, so I bank with Bank of America, have built-in trackers for budgeting, and I've not played around with it to the extent that I probably should. But I know that Bank of America tells me like how much money I've spent versus how much money I've made at the end of every month. It's really kind of like they created their own like little dashboard. So it shows you your FICO score. It shows you like different categories that you're spending your money in, uses like these circular graphs to show, oh, you spent more money on food this month versus gas versus utilities. And so I would say too, as we're talking about using these applications or talking about budgeting styles, like use what's available to you too, maximize what's available to you. I don't know how other banks do things because I only have my checking account with Bank of America, but I think Chase might have something comparable. A lot of the other credit card, or rather bank credit cards, have kind of showing you a graph or some kind of visual of how you're spending your money. And so I would say, again, use what you have, but use the information that we're presenting in the budgeting systems and the budgeting styles in conjunction with those things so that you can have, if that's your desire, a more whole picture scenario on how much debt you have, how much debt you're eliminating, what your income looks like, where you're spending your money, maybe ways to kind of restructure how and when you spend your money. I saw a great tip. I don't know if it was on Instagram or if it was on Twitter, where somebody was, or LinkedIn, where somebody was basically saying, like, did you know you can change the due dates of certain bills, particularly credit cards? And that's something that I knew kind of intuitively, but I never thought about talking about that openly because I didn't realize how many people didn't know that. So if you want to structure your budget in such a way that you know you're getting paid on this day and your bill is not due until that day, and so that gives you greater control over how you navigate your finances or what you pay when, that could be a huge help. You might have a credit card that is due on the 2nd, but you don't get paid until the 15th. Well, maybe it'd be helpful to change the due date to the 16th or change the due date to the 28th so that you're sure that you'll have that income to then be able to pay for whatever that expense might be. What other questions do we have on the topic of either budgeting? I was about to say building credit, budgeting, financial trauma, financial therapy, the workbook, the course. I don't think, and James, you can jump in if I'm wrong, but I don't think that we have too much more to talk about on this particular topic outside of really giving you guys the value of this work. So again, the sole purpose, and James and I rehearsed this yesterday, the sole purpose of us jumping on today's live is to be very promotional of this work that we're doing, both the course and the workbook. So tell us some of the things that you would like to see, or some of the things that you do like to see when you're consuming content in that way. And also, I'll add that we have a link in both of our bios that takes you to a Google form or Google Doc that basically has a spot for your name and a spot for your email. So if you're watching this live or if you watch this on a replay and you are interested in joining the wait list for any updates or information around the final delivery of these products, definitely feel free to either go to James' Instagram link in bio or my Instagram link in bio, or wherever else this is being streamed. I'll include the link as well to join the wait list. We're going to continue marketing this until we release it. So you're going to be sick of us. We're going to flood the socials with information around this course and workbook. So even if you don't join the wait list and you follow either of us, you'll see it. But it's probably more beneficial for you to join the wait list just so that you know when it happens. And who knows, we might do giveaways, promotions, etc. for that audience first. So definitely there's an incentive to join.
For sure. As we're talking about like the budgeting apps that Financially Present had mentioned, and just talking about how those apps work. I think one of the main things to point out is those apps are great, and it's good to kind of get all of the information there, but it kind of reminds me of, like a bank statement or something that kind of lists out everything that you're spending your money on. And I think one of the things that can be maybe a missing link or missing piece is knowing how you operate with money, understanding how you operate with money, but also bringing awareness and being truthful with your current, situation. And I know even for me, sometimes I want to believe that maybe I'm making more than what is actually coming in, right? Like I'll give an example. For those of you who do work 9-to-5 jobs, a company typically will write out a salary number on whenever guys come to an agreement for how much they're going to pay you, right? But that number that they write down is not the number that you actually receive. There's taxes that come out. There's things that come out that you have to be truthful and honest with yourself and say, okay, although that's what my letter or whatever said, this is the actual amount of money that I'm bringing in. And it's the same way when we're looking at our money. You have to look at the actual amount that you bring in, and you have to look at the actual amount that you spend. All right. And sometimes that can be difficult to realize or admit. But I think once you are able to admit those things, then you can move into a budgeting system that allows you to begin reaching your financial goals. And so that step from the budgeting app, you feel a little bit more organized, the list of things that's happening, to the realization of, okay, this is actually where I'm at, to, okay, now I can begin listing out everything and have a system that now allows me to reach some of those financial goals. So I just wanted to point out, that can be one of the things that it's great to have this apps, software, whatever, but you need those missing pieces along with the education on financial therapy, financial trauma, some of the things that you may not even be aware of that has happened in your past. Just being educated on those things to compile everything together to allow you to start reaching those financial goals.
Yeah, I want to wrap us up with a quick piece of information that I was reminded of today. So I have a podcast. It's called Overcoming Financial Trauma, and I interviewed a certified financial therapist and licensed marriage and relationship counselor or something. I forgot exactly what his designations were, but we were talking about financial trauma, and he mentioned that talking about rather how he got into the space, and he talked about like the brain stuff. And I made a TikTok about it just before I jumped on the stream. But the brain stuff that he was talking about, shout out to Nate. The brain stuff that he was talking about was like the neurological mechanisms that happen behind the scenes. And he broke it down in such a simplistic way. He said that The amygdala, which exists in the back of your brain, is responsible for control of your body, right? It's responsible for keeping you alive, like the things that we don't think about. It's also responsible for the fight or flight response that we have when we are facing danger. So the analogy that he used was, if a tiger was to pop up in front of you, your immediate response is probably going to be one of fear and like, I need to figure out what I'm going to do about this tiger. And so your adrenaline gets pumping and you figure out, like, do I stand still? Do I run? Do I fight the tiger? Like, what is the response? And once the threat of the tiger is no longer present, then your amygdala calms down and your prefrontal cortex, the front of your brain, kicks back in, which is responsible for rational thought. The problem when we take these variables and we apply them to financial trauma or any other emotional trauma that is not imminent danger is that your amygdala does not have the ability to distinguish between real physical danger, like this tiger standing in front of you, and emotional danger that you might experience through insecurity or anxiety as it relates to money. So let's replace the tiger with something like exposure to poverty, whether that be short or long term. Your brain, the part of your brain that's responsible for fight or flight and navigating trauma, the amygdala is going to fire off, and it's going to fire off at an unnatural rate because it is perceiving this long-term sustained trauma. And while your amygdala is firing off at this unnatural rate, your prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for rational decision making, like budgeting, right, is not going to be activated. You're going to be operating in a survival state. And the longer you exist in that survival state, the longer your amygdala is going to fire off, allowing for you to make irrational decisions. And I was just completely blown away by this breakdown and the mechanics of how our brain plays a role in responding to trauma, particularly perceived danger that may not necessarily be real danger. And so one of the things that we talked about in helping clients to address and overcome trauma, particularly financial trauma, is to first help them recognize that they are safe, that they are in a safe place, and that they can calm down their amygdala, get out of that survival fight or flight mode, and then start using their prefrontal cortex to make sound decisions. And so when James and I are talking about, here's the big commercial, right? The big plug. When James and I are talking about the work involved in creating this course and workbook, we're talking about the prefrontal cortex associated with budgeting and understanding budgeting systems and the tools that exist that help you rationally approach money. But we may be creating a product for people who are in that survival state. They're operating from a place of their amygdala firing off. And so the role of financial wellness, the role of financial therapy, the role of being able to identify and untangle the feelings and emotions that we have related to either our current experiences with money, past experiences with money, or what we fear for the future as it relates to our financial goals, that is equally important, because we can talk budgeting all day, and most financial influencers do, without addressing the fact that their audience is not going to comprehend or execute on what it is that they're giving, because they're operating from a place of survival. I take a breath because that was a lot, but I also had shared I shared with this guest today that it makes me think about myself when I first started in the financial education space, because I had read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, like many of us do. And I was out there, touting the same, assets over liabilities, and you got to spend less than you earn, and you got to pay yourself first, and you got to dot, 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 right? Going down the list. And I use this real world example, in that myself personally, I as a child, growing up as a teenager, and then going into young adulthood, did not own a pair of Jordans until I was in my late 20s. And for a while, I was very proud of that, because I'm like, oh, I'm not going to spend $200 on a pair of shoes when I could buy a pair of shoes for $75. And in a way, I realized that comment, that pride projected, can come off as judgy, can come off as shaming, can come off as guilting, because what we see on social media with a lot of financial influencers, and I'm going to pick on specifically Black financial influencers, is that they will say, instead of buying the pair of Jordans, you need to take that money and buy you some Nike stock. Instead of buying the new iPhone, you need to take that money and buy you some shares of Apple. But what they're not taking into account in the delivery of their content rather, is that the people that they're talking to who are buying the Jordans or who are buying the iPhone are operating from a place of survival. And so they're doing what they can to cope with the financial trauma that they're navigating. And as such, they're not making rational decisions. And so we need to stop approaching financial education from a place of shame, guilt, and fear, and start approaching financial education from a place of, let us neutralize this overactive amygdala that says, I'm not safe, I need to survive. And in the process of surviving, I'm going to do what makes me feel good for this 10 minutes or for this 30 days until I could get to the next thing that makes me feel good for that same amount of time, and start helping people realize that they are in a safe place, that they're not in danger, and that these are the feelings that they have around money, and these are the reasons why they have the feelings that they have around money, and these are the things that you can do to start setting yourself up once you realize the mess that you are in, either because you created that mess or because you fell into that mess by virtue of circumstance. And now we have to take the baby steps, to James' point, around the way that we're delivering this content. We have to take the baby steps to get you to clean up that mess, and ultimately to get you to accomplish the goals that you have financially. So I'm gonna jump off my soapbox. I just wanted to drop that last gem before we dropped. I'm gonna hand it off to James. Before I do, you all know where to find me, at Rakim Sabri everywhere. I talk about financial trauma and financial empowerment for people who look like me. And definitely join the wait list, or just stay tuned and buy the course and buy the workbook.
I think you said enough for me and you both. I think you dropped some fire gems there. I seen heat coming up from the microphone you got in there. But yeah, we're really excited for this workbook and our course, and we want everybody who's interested to definitely join the wait list. Like Rakim said, is all of the links will be in our bios, where you can find those. Just sign up, and yeah, we're gonna end this thing off on a great note. We'll still be promoting this, and we'll still be, I'm sure me and Rakim may be doing a few more lives, but stay tuned. Share this out with anyone that you know that maybe could use this. Because we're excited about this project. So hope everyone has a good night, and we'll see you guys later. Peace.